Welcome back to Invisible Matters. I'm Deborah Martin. Today, we are going to follow up on a tip that I shared in a previous message. So, the tip before was the helping hand, and I talked about having close relationships and resources right at your fingertips that you can reach out to when you feel like you need support. It could be a buddy who will just listen, a neighbor who can give you an immediate ride if you need help with transportation, and so forth. Today, we're going to talk about the other hand. And this is actual resources that you need to think about regarding any need that your child may have. So we know that every child has strengths and weaknesses, and you may observe certain areas with your child's development that you believe he or she could use more support in. And so we're going to talk about how to access resources in terms of not just programs, but putting your child into real-time experiences where they will benefit from the things that they need to continue to grow and to reach their own personal potential. And joining me today is a wonderful parent, Miss Tanya Scott. She has a child, and I've known Miss Scott, probably 10, 11 years at this point. I think her young man was probably in elementary school, 5th grade maybe, when I first became involved in your life and his. And so you are going to take us on a journey today. Miss Scott is going to explain, and I'll let you tell it, but she talks about how important it is to have a roadmap in terms of where you want your child to get to and what you need to do along the way to help your child get there. So welcome.
Thank you, Miss Martin.
How are you?
Oh my goodness, I haven't seen you in a while, but you are still a part of Trenton's life. We still talk to you on the phone. I just haven't seen you. We go through emails and text messages. You're part of our village, and that's what you were speaking about earlier, having a village. And so you're a lifetime part of our village.
Yes, yes.
And so I'm excited to be here because I have so much information based on my journey that's here that I feel like everybody could benefit from. You know, and it was a journey, and I'm still on a journey. The journey doesn't stop, right? It's just a different way of going, but I'm still on the journey.
Because Trenton is now in college.
Right. His second degree.
Yes, he's working on his second degree. So let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about elementary school. Just areas that you felt like he needed some support in outside of school. What kinds of activities did you engage him in?
Yeah, so Trenton started out in karate, actually. I wasn't sure. I knew he needed to do something. He wasn't really socializing that much. And, you know, there were issues with bullying and kids picking on him and so forth. So I kind of felt like karate was just the best place to kind of target all those areas. And lucky for me, he met a karate instructor that actually he taught for the hearing impaired. He actually was a teacher, a hearing impaired teacher. So he actually did sign language. So he understood children having weaknesses. And so he was able to cater to Trenton's weaknesses. And so we didn't just deal with Trenton doing karate. He actually got to know Trenton. And so he was able to work with him and thereby allowing Trenton to socialize. He became more social.
Right.
And so he facilitated that. So it's really important for the people that, even though you're putting them in activities, to talk to these instructors. A lot of times they have children or they have nieces and nephews that have weaknesses or disabilities, but you don't know that until you have a conversation. And therefore, they tend to be a little more understanding of the issues, which makes it so much easier for you as a parent. So it got to the point where I was comfortable leaving him there. He started socializing. He started understanding not just karate, but why he was doing it. What was the purpose? And it was because, he was having issues socializing. He was having issues taking up for himself. So it turned into not just karate.
It was a lot more.
It was a lot more.
And so that's what I want parents to get. It's not just about karate. It's social skills, right? Building relationships, self-esteem, confidence. All of that came out of that one experience of going to karate. And so what other things in elementary school?
He also took music lessons. He went to and started playing the drums.
Okay.
Right? And so the reason I put him into that is because I noticed that music helped him remember. He could remember lyrics to songs, but he was having hard times with his schoolwork. So when I put him in drum, the drum instructor, I told him about his disability or his weakness, and he didn't just start working with him. He said, well, what do you like? Do you like cooking? So they started making up songs about cooking. And so thereby, it wasn't just him learning drums. Now he's learning songs based on him putting together a whole set about cooking.
Okay.
Cookies and things like
Right.
that. So it helped him with his memorization.
Right. So hold on to that cooking, because at the end of this story, there's some relevance there. Again, so important what a child experiences very early on in terms of them finding their niche down the road. Okay, so we got karate, cooking,
Boy Scout.
Boy Scouts.
Boy Scout.
Huge. And for those of you who may not know, the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts have programs for children who do have certain needs, if you will, who may go about doing things differently than their typical peers. And so they actually make sure that they cater to children who have needs. So
Yeah, and actually they have a whole track for those students or those kids who have disabilities. Now, they leave it up to you as to whether you follow that track or not. But what happened with Trenton is he started so early in Boy Scout, he built relationships with the instructors, and so therefore when he started to move up, he didn't need to follow that track because they knew him at that point. So they didn't want him to go on something different. What they started doing was looking at his weaknesses and saying, okay, Trenton, you don't do that, but you do this. And so as a result, he went from kindergarten all the way through middle school, high school, and so he is an Eagle Scout now. And he did not have to follow that track, but it was available to him. And the instructors may have used some of the resources or information from that, but they wanted him to be traditional. And because they knew him, that's so important, because I talked to them. I explained what his weaknesses were. And so they got to know him. So as a result, he followed the same track as everyone else with some alterations. And he's an Eagle Scout. And so he's built relationships. He can camp. He can cook. He can start a fire. He can swim.
So just imagine if you were hesitant and didn't want other people to see some of his challenges, and you didn't sign him up for Boy Scouts, he would not have had that exposure. Again, even though he may have had some discomfort initially, but putting him in situations where he can continue to practice those life skills that he would need as a young man. So how about middle school?
Bowling. So he didn't really tell me he wanted to bowl, but I found this league, and I noticed it was about scholarships. It was a scholarship league, and it was for kids who had disabilities. And I said, well, let me give it a try. It turned out to be one of the best things I could do. Trenton ended up, he's a 200-point bowler. He bowls very well. But these instructors weren't just there. They were there to teach them. So it wasn't just about the scholarships. Again, they got to understand he's left-handed. He bowls a little differently. He processes differently. They took all of that in effect, and they worked with him. And these were the same instructors, and he rotated throughout. So did he ever get a scholarship? No. However, the instructors were absolutely fantastic, and because of their instruction and taking their time to get to know him, they were able to tell me when he needed to switch a ball, when he needed something special. He became one of the best bowlers there. Did he get a scholarship? No, he did not. But his self-esteem just rocketed, skyrocketed.
And it's something that he continues to enjoy.
Yes, he
as a
likes
young
showing
man.
off, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
And again, for some children at school, they may have lots of challenges academically with learning and, following directions. And so it's outside of school where parents can really push and put them in situations that aren't available to them in school where they can continue. So I may not be the best student, but I'm a really good bowler, and I'm holding on to that and some other things that I'm really good at. So very important. So you're filling up the hand already. You have a book by the time you get finished with all of the things that you have put, your young man in. Chess. I think you had mentioned that he played chess.
He does play chess. And so, and keeping in mind of Trent's disabilities, but I saw that there was some free chess lessons, and I took him to the library. And when I got there, I met the instructor. He owned his own company. And so I explained to him what Trenton's weaknesses were. And he said, I don't have a lot of students coming to play, so not only am I going to teach Trenton, and with his disability, I'm going to teach you too, because what I want is every time I teach him something, I want you to know it so you can go home and play with him. And he said, now I also, because everywhere he volunteered, so he went to all the libraries. He said, if you can, I want you to follow me around the different libraries because I want him to have an opportunity to interact with other students. And so that's what we did for 3 months. We just went to the various libraries, and he taught Trenton and taught me. And Trenton plays very well. Now, it's not one of his favorite games, but he can play. And he challenges people when he get a chance. And actually, as a matter of fact, that was one of their pastimes in one of his history classes in high school. When they had free time, he would allow the students to play chess. And Trenton was teaching other kids how to play chess.
Self-esteem. Self-esteem. So I also know in high school that the school that he went to, they had certain programs for vocational skills that you were able to tap into. And here we go full circle with the cooking.
The cooking, yes. So Trenton actually liked to eat baked goods, cookies, candies, and so forth. I mean, he was just constantly eating sweets. So, I said, well, why don't you learn to bake those things? And not realizing that the baking was allowing him to learn measurements, learning how to follow instructions, because that's where he was having weaknesses, step by step. And so I initially taught him the first time, but after that, he would just start baking cookies and cakes and things for people. And now he actually knows his measurements. If you ask him a question, he knows. He knows to put the timer on. He knows how much time is time. He even knows how to convert, all because he liked cookies and cakes. So he was constantly cooking brownies and cakes and cookies so much.
So you tapped into something that he liked and used that as a motivator to help him to learn. Math is involved in cooking, reading, comprehension, in terms of understanding how to follow the directions. And so, we can be creative and really think about what can I do? What kind of activity can I come up with? Because I know my child likes to sew. So, maybe I can sign her up in a fashion class or something like that. And they're going to gain the social skills and all of the other things that come along with it. I had a rule, actually, my husband and I, in our house with our daughters. Every year, you had to do something. And that meant, dance, gymnastics. We didn't care what it was, but we felt it was so important for them outside of school, outside of the house, to be doing something where you're engaging and learning new things that you might never be exposed to. It's uncomfortable because sometimes they don't want to do it, but you get to pick, but you got to do something.
We are their first teacher.
Yes.
And most of their skills they learn at home first, believe it or not. The math, all of that, that's something that could be taught at home. Even if you're not sure, there are kind of math games out there. they want to learn how to garden. That teaches them skills. You just kind of hone in what they like. And that's where you go. And I'll also say, because he liked baking, when we went to the library to look for books, we talked about that. And so the librarian went and found all these books on who stole the chocolate chip cookie, who baked the last velvet cake. And as a result, Trenton reads novels now, because we kept going back. And once he read the books, she would give him additional authors. But it was all about baking. And so he would go through those books in 2 or 3 weeks. And so now he reads, and I couldn't even get him to read at one time. And all it took was honing in on that thing that he liked. And now he reads novels.
Wow, amazing. So he did the cooking program in high school.
He did some barbering. And he didn't like that, so that was not lived long at all. But he actually had an opportunity. It was just something to try. He had his own set of barbering clippers and stuff. I mean, he didn't do very much with it, but he tried it.
Right.
He tried it.
Right. Now, how did you, and again, these tips are not solely for parents who have children with special needs. These tips are for every parent and every child. Again, as I started out with, we all got something. And so you may see certain things that your child might benefit from. And so after high school, at the end of high school, you had to make a decision about what's next for him. And so how did you, because this is hugely important, how did you start to prepare for life after high school with him, with the challenges that he had?
Well, I knew that the SAT was going to be a challenge for him. He wanted to go to college. He kept talking about it. But I knew test taking was not his strength at all. And so I had to think, how was he going to get into these colleges? Because that's one of the number one requirements is the SAT and PST scores. So I thought, well, why am I trying to help him get into a 4-year college? He can go to a community college where you don't need any of those test scores. You just walk right in. And so that was my first thought. And when I called them, he didn't need anything but a high school diploma. And you actually don't even need a diploma. So that was key. And then finding out from the high school that he could take a class or two while he was in high school to even determine if that's something he liked. And he would still have the support of the high school teachers while he was taking these classes. So that's what he did. He wanted culinary. So what we did was we found a class. It was just a basic culinary class. And he took that at night in the end of his 11th grade, I think, give or take. I think it was 11th grade. He took that class and he loved it. I mean, it just gave him basic information. And because he was in high school, we didn't have to pay for the actual tuition. We had to pay some fees. So it was an opportunity to try something for free. And so on top of the fact that he didn't need a SAT or PSAT score, he walked into college when he was ready because he had already taken the class. So he was already registered. So all of that stress and anxiety about, is he going to go to college and how is he going to get in there? I had absolutely none. He had been registered. We literally walked in the fall, signed up for classes, and it was a done deal. I didn't have to stress him out about taking tutoring and all these things you do to prepare for your test. He didn't have to do any of that. That was so much anxiety I had going on in elementary and middle school. And literally, we didn't do anything but type in the computer what classes he was taking, and he was there.
Now, you say there was no stress, but I know that you had to research and find out about certain programs.
I did.
And sometimes, people aren't responsive, when we're looking for information, but you were persistent and made sure that everybody followed up that needed to follow up at his high school so that he could get where he needed to be.
Yeah, I probably should correct that. I didn't have stress in terms of what he needed to do. There were things I needed to do. And so I was able to find out that there was a TRIO program at the school also that supported kids with special needs. And their job was to provide him in college. They provided him extra tutoring. They made sure that he was in his classes if there were problems. That was a safe go-to place for him. That was free of charge.
Free of charge. What about tuition?
So I had been worrying, am I going to be able to pay tuition? Because I spent a lot of my money on some of these extracurricular activities. And so I was thinking, how am I going to pay for this? I didn't have to. It was a disability waiver.
Mm-hmm.
And so it covered tuition, and it didn't cover fees, but it did cover all his tuition. And so his books, didn't have to worry about the books either because that was covered by Doris.
And this is through the state of Maryland.
Yes.
This is a resource through the state. And we know we have viewers who may be all over,
Right.
the United States. But this is a program within the state of Maryland. However, research your own state because these programs many of them extend from federal funding. And so you want to make that phone call and find out what resources are available where you live.
Yeah, and let me also say, and you didn't hear it from me, but Doris took care of books while he was in community college. But he's in a 4-year college now. They take care of tuition, books, and room and board.
Okay. So we now have Trenton with many challenges who is in his 3rd year of college. So he got his associate degree and now he's in a 4-year college. I want you now to tell our listeners what challenges. We've just been saying challenges. When Trenton first came into my life, I was aware that he had speech. He had significant speech challenges, fluency, stuttering, if you will. What else? Attention deficit challenges.
Yeah, he actually wasn't hearing very well because he had tubes in his ears.
Okay, tubes in his ears.
Well, he has a seizure disorder.
Very important because his seizure disorder is a concern now that he's actually living on campus at a college. And so we have time. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But seizure disorder and
ADHD.
I said ADHD.
Did we say, we said autism?
And autism. Autism. High functioning autism. So you think about that, all of that, and what her story is in terms of how she pushed, supported, and exposed him to life altering experiences that this young man is now getting a college degree. I mean, it is a phenomenal story. You are a phenomenal parent because I never knew all of this, even though I've known you for years. Every now and then you would say, Trenton's got bowling this week or that. I never knew that all of these things were connected to, special needs and special, services and supports. So while you were also doing the work with school staff and getting his needs met there, you were doing all of this on the outside. And so I just take my hat off to you. I say you have to come on this show and share with other parents. I know, we get tired. It's frustrating sometimes, but it's so important that you didn't just, be that hovering parent who worried and said, no, he can't go without me. He's actually living, on campus. In college right now. It's not easy. We're not saying any of this is easy.
No, absolutely
None
not.
of it. But it can work if you put in the effort and the time and the love. What would you say to parents who might be going through similar situations, or their child may not have a disability, but has some particular thing, that they're working on, like being very shy or, something like that? Anything. What would you say to parents?
Well, I know you talked a little bit about having an action plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Goals set for them. You know that they're shy. What are some of the things, you may even have to Google it. What are some of the things you may need to do to help them with that? So just kind of having a vision for them, and building relationships with others. I mean, everyone's not against us, right? And so a lot of the things that I was able to get was because of the relationships I built. And some of them I had to fight for, and some of them came so naturally. So those relationships are important. And I'm talking about with the cafeteria person and the bus driver who would turn around and say, oh, he forgot his medicine. Let me bring him back to you. Or I would get a phone call, he got left. We're going to send the bus back. So those relationships are significant.
Yes.
They're your
Yes.
village. And I would say that that's to build a relationship with the librarian. I'm calling you because I remember your son like this author. We have a new author. So this is a book I think he'd be interested in. That's important because I can't be everywhere all the time.
That's right.
That village is significant.
You
So
can.
build rapport, build relationships.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad that we have this relationship and that you have allowed me to stay in his life.
Absolutely.
Because I just can't wait to see where Trenton ends up. He's going to be. So, what is he majoring in?
He's majoring in business administration because the
Okay.
culinary degree he has, he wants to own a food truck.
Okay.
Sweet and
So,
savory.
there you go. There you go. Job well done. Fine. Right now, just think about the end goal and start making a plan, an intentional plan. How can I help my child get there? The goal may change along the way, and that's okay because they're learning as they go. But I want you to always think about behind the scenes, the things that you can be doing as we work on those invisible matters. Thank you for joining us today. Subscribe and follow, please. See you next time.